Welcome to PressTalks. Today we're going to discuss the Local Media for Democracy project. This project aiming at providing support to local media outlets who are operating in community area where they don't have really access to pluralistic or independent news. And under this project, those local media outlets get funds, but mentorship programs. And I have really good news for you because today I'm not alone on the sofa. I'm with Iryna Vidanava, expert, viability media business expert, publisher yourself. So we're very happy, and mentorship of the Local Media for Democracy project. Really thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
So maybe before starting to delve into the project, I would like to hear more about, of course, Iryna, the business expert in the sustainability and strategies, but also the publisher. You co-found CityDog, this independent digital magazine. But also, I want to know more about Iryna as the person, I feel like, whose life has been driven by the passion for helping local media outlets, this passion for journalism. I want to know more about you as a person also, so maybe let's start with that.
So
feel free.
Yeah, I have several hats, like many of us these days, but it's true that my passion is publishing media, being a media entrepreneur. I have more than 20 years of experience of doing that. CityDog is not my first media, it's actually the third one. And I'm from Belarus, where, as you probably know, the environment for media is extremely harsh, currently close to impossible. So CityDog was also a challenge to me and to my team, who co-founded this independent magazine, is to prove that even in unfree authoritarian country, it is possible not only to run an independent media, but also to make it sustainable, self-sustainable, and not depend on grants. So that was an idea. It was now 12 years ago when we launched. We still run it. Now from exile, unfortunately, like most of the independent media in Belarus, we were
you
shut
have
down.
to relocate from Belarus.
Yes, but again, it's still possible to reach out with modern technologies to the audiences inside of the country. So CityDog initially was a digital magazine about Minsk, and most importantly about people living in Minsk. So it was human-centric storytelling, very engaging, cultural, social, and a little bit of news magazine, but really with an idea behind it that it should be the city for the people and not people for the city, as it used to be in the Soviet time. So that's my publishing side, and of course, as a co-founder and as a CEO of the magazine, I had to solve all kinds of problems, from co-developing the concept for the magazine to understanding how it all should work and operate, and most importantly, to make sure that it's sustainable financially.
And embrace, I guess, all those new technologies.
Absolutely. Well,
let's come back on the Local Media for Democracy project. So you support 27 EU countries with 42 projects right now. So you assess the needs and you also design a workshop for them, and you got to know each of them individually. So it would be very interesting to know more what maybe surprised you in good or even bad way.
Well, I think the first surprise in the program was how many applications we got. There were 2 rounds,
yes,
and we've got over 200 applications. And that means that there is a huge demand and need to support independent local media.
Yes.
Because, of course, as media everywhere else, they're struggling with financing, with rediscovering their business models, but most importantly, they really want to stay there. And they play a very important role. What's also important to know that we were looking for media who are located in these news deserts, areas where there are either no other independent media or no media at all, or there are marginalized groups which are not having quality information. So that's another point here, is that we're talking about public interest journalism.
Yes.
So that was the first surprise. We didn't expect so many applications. It was really hard for the jury to make the choices.
To make choices, yeah.
And I think the jury did well. I mean, we've got really diverse group of very interesting and creative projects. You've got all kind of media, from small community media in a village next to Madrid, which is really several elderly people running it, for the community, and they come up with an idea that they wanted to go digital, and they started learning how to produce podcasts, and they now focusing on women in the community. And then they produce this, they learn with their coach how to, I didn't do that, they hired their own local journalist who became international journalist, and she came back to her community to teach these local media producers how to do this podcast. And they're about 60 years old, and they were so afraid in the beginning, and now they're confident, they produce those podcasts, they will publish in the book, and they will present it to the community. So that you have this kind of a very tiny project, and then you have super professional local media from across different countries, even making mobile apps in 6 months, which is
6 months.
6 months. It's hard to imagine, but they not
It's
only
really impossible.
it is possible now. We know
It
took off. There is a post on your website about this project, and I think that this is really amazing jobs that they've done and how they did it. So that was another, probably not surprise, but a very nice thing for me to notice, the diversity and the creativity and the innovation inside of this very, very different projects. But then another thing which I noticed, and I was really taken by that, is the commitment they have, all of them, to producing, to continue publishing, despite all the difficulties and challenges. Because in some countries like Hungary, it's not only economic challenges, it's really political challenge. It's not a free democracy anymore, and for media the environment is really hard. But no matter what country we look or what community we look at, they're really committed to this quality journalism for public interest, focusing on local communities and local news. And this is really hard to do. How do you get your attention from social media stuff to some local tiny but important issues? And so they do that. And another one, when I did the needs assessment, one of the questions I was asking partners, because it's hard to know from the application sometimes, what is the size of the editorial team? And the average size of local media for democracy partner is between 3 and 5 people. Can you imagine that these tiny teams doing those great projects in a matter of 6-7 months? And so to me, it's a sign of efficiency and productivity. But again, it brings me back to the point of commitment, because only people who really care.
They're driven by the passion.
They're driven by the passion, they're driven by the mission. And I think that also just reminded me a quote from one of the partners saying that today being a publisher of independent local media is not business, it's a mission. And I totally agree with this statement. So they're not there for money, they're there to serve.
But they need also to develop new ways to diversify their revenue. So
yes, that's part of it. Also, it wasn't necessarily a condition for application.
Because most of them are based on advertisements, or
some of them are based on advertisements, some of them are based on reader revenue models, some of them are making some money or surviving on grants. There are different models there, but one more last thing that surprised me, I think it was the biggest surprise and a very pleasant one, was how open the members, the partners of local media democracy were about sharing their know-hows and experiences. And that's an added bonus to this program, because so the capacity building program is basically all online. We didn't do anything in person, and that was a pity because I wanted to meet people in person. And I will meet many of them in Brno in the local journalism festival.
Yes.
In June.
And if you want to know more about this, you can find details below the video and on our website.
But actually, we meet online on a regular basis. But when you have 42 projects, you can't really do one-to-one mentorship. Yes. So it had to be the workshops on the themes and topics which are the most biggest challenges or common challenges faced by the partners. And that's how it was designed. Despite all the differences among those different outlets and their markets and their countries, there are certain common challenges that they face. So most common were, how do you actually understand your audience? How do you know your audience, who they are?
How do we do?
Yeah, well, there are many answers to that, but that's a very important question. And then how do you measure if you're efficient? So that's your data analytics. And another common area, and I think that it will resonate with many of our listeners, is how to package and distribute your content. Because today, in the digital era, in the social media era, just producing good content is not enough, unfortunately. You really have to find the right audience
and
to deliver on the right platforms.
Yes,
so it's connected with knowing your audience.
And there's so much platforms nowadays.
Exactly. How do you choose and what is the priority? And then how do you engage with your audience, online and offline? And that helps you to understand your audience and to serve it better. And how do you build community around your media?
So this will be a big element of the best recipe for successful.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, of course, like you mentioned in the beginning, is how do you finance your journalism? And what's very important, because we talk about independent media, and many of them are investigative reporters. How do you finance your media without compromising on your independence and your quality of the content? Because of course you can get big numbers if you, I don't know, post about cats, but it's not what you're doing as a local independent media. Not only the cats should be there. So just to answer your question, there is no universal recipe. So every media, among local media for democracy partners and outside of the big world, has to find those ingredients themselves. But I would say that the most successful ones are those who are driven by their mission and vision. So you know who you are as a media. And then when you have user-centric approach, so you can't just produce content that matters to you or to your media. You have to think why and how it matters to your target audiences. And then those who include also thorough data analysis, so that you can compare and see where you're heading.
It's important to take a step back and to compare and assess.
Exactly, and understand where you perform better, where not so well, and why do you want to grow in terms of numbers, or if you reach your ceiling in your small community, then maybe you want to go in depth and increase engagement. And then another piece of this with this recipe will be experimenting with formats and technology, of course, as we mentioned. And then, of course, to try to diversify your revenue. So these are the key ingredients. And then when we look at the
biggest picture,
at all the partners, what they've done. So you've seen all of this. So all of them see it as challenges, and most of them already have some ideas for solutions. So my role was basically to facilitate, to bring some expertise and practitioners and case studies, and to design this discussion so that we could share and learn from each other. So it's not one way. I don't believe in this approach today, because nobody knows the answers. We have questions, we have some answers, but then collectively we might find the best solutions for each particular outlet. So, and also the local media for democracy call was focused on innovation. And then there were lots of questions in the beginning. What do you mean by innovation? Because it's a huge word.
Yeah.
So in our case, it wasn't about necessarily inventing something new, because with the funding we could provide, we couldn't expect a new Google being invented or a new Facebook. It was mainly focused for each media application, what they would do differently to try something new that they haven't done, with an idea of A, to address the problem of news desert, of serving their readers and communities, and B, to be more sustainable. Don't have to go very expensive and deep today, but you can actually benefit from multimedia content. Then many of our projects were and are focused on audience engagement, both online and offline. And online, we've got some really, really interesting examples of automated crowdsourcing. It's when you get information from your readers through online applications, either through the web or even apps. And there are different types of this. And why it's important? Well, first of all, again, we talk about small media. They sometimes have readers in remote places, and they can't have reporters in all of these places. And that's opening up your two-way communication channel, and people can easily submit their news information, stories, or alarm about something, and then the media can come on. And sometimes it's only reader content which actually drives the publication, because they can send photos and stuff. On the other end of the production end, This also creates more efficiency in the operations because it saves time, it automates, it gathers information, it sorts it out, and it sends it to the right person in the editorial team. So one of the very interesting solutions, which I think can be interesting for others to look into, is a Portuguese local media developed a WhatsApp integrated crowdsourcing solution. And they actually didn't think of WhatsApp at first, but then they realized that WhatsApp was the most popular messenger, and it's a direct contact with the readers, and the security and safety concerns are on the side of the website and not on the small editorial team. This is a very exciting example, featured already on EFJ's website, so check it out. And if you're interested, the guys are really open about telling you more about who developed this solution, how they did it. But then, of course, as much as we want to be online, we also got to be offline and actually see each other like we do now and meet and talk. And this is another way of very important engagement with the audience, but also building your community. And if you remember, before COVID, that was a big trend in the media industry. Every media, it seemed so, organized some events and debates and discussions, paid and free, the big media and small media, and then COVID kind of took it all away.
Yes.
And it's still hard for many media to come back to their readers and to see them face to face. So I was really pleased to see so many projects in local media for democracy organizing these offline events with the communities. And we've got the whole big range of it, from public discussions to citizen journalism workshops, from old people to younger people.
Because I think it's all generations.
Exactly. So different media found their own different way of doing it. One of my favorite examples would be, and I think it's a challenging one, it's not like everyone can repeat it, but another Portuguese media actually based in Lisbon, which is the capital, but still a news desert because there are neighborhoods where people or marginalized communities, they are not in the media, they're absent from the news agenda, they don't exist. And so this editorial team, instead of reporting on them, they relocated their editorial office for 1 week in 2 or 3 neighborhoods, and they spent the whole week there. They identified beforehand the influencers, including on social media, and local community, neighborhood kind of opinion leaders, and they invited them to come to meet with them. And then together they identified the topics which were of the most importance for this community, and then they co-created the content together with the community. That's a really amazing story. And similar, maybe not so in-depth, but similar project we have in France, in Strasbourg. In Strasbourg, there is also a news desert, apparently.
So we will not expect in those areas. That's really interesting.
Yes, and for those of you who are interested in this news desert thing, also check the research which came out as part of this project. You will find a lot of surprises there. So this media in Strasbourg, they also went to neighborhoods which are where it's working people living, where migrants are living. They went there and they invited people to come and talk to them about their problems. And again, it wasn't easy. And one of the reasons why, because you first have to build trust. And that's another know-how of this project, that you really have to learn. It takes time. It might be even faster to build an app than to build trust with the readers and audiences who don't know you necessarily. But once we've created this wonderful content, then we distribute it. And so that's another challenge. And many projects are focusing on content distribution and multi-platform publishing. Like you mentioned before, there are lots of platforms. And when you're a small team, how do you choose? How do you choose? I think when you know yourself as a media brand, you know if your audience is younger, they might be more on Instagram. If you're more visual, you might want to be on Instagram.
To help you.
And then discussion. And again, that's why there is no recipe for everyone, because it really depends on the granularities of you as a publisher.
Like tailored recipe.
Exactly. But then by talking to other media, by learning some of the big trends, by knowing your market and your audience, then you can make the right recipe for yourself.
And it takes time.
But it can be quite quick results. And then we do have quite a few media outlets which were focusing their projects on revenue diversification. We have several local media trying paywalls. then there was always a big question: do you want to close some of your content for the public, or you want to be as open and free as possible?
Yeah.
It's always an internal debate, and you have to make this decision and know why or what type of content you will shut behind the paywall. But other media are looking into donations, it's crowdfunding, different types of crowdfunding campaigns, some very successful examples there. Some of them are trying to build membership models. It's where you don't just pay to access the content, where you give something because you believe that you belong to this media community and you want to support
and to be committed.
Exactly, and it's a more sustainable model because you get this revenue on a repetitive basis and you can project it. There are other medias who are, as you said, earning some money on advertising, and they're experimenting with native advertising content. But when it has a value to the readers, but it also has a value as money for the media, and you can produce good content with that. And I will finish with another very unusual example of a mobile app by a Polish partner in a small town, who was concerned that readers do not actually read in depth anymore, and that they're more interested in national and international news and what's happening in their community, in this town and in the region. And so how do you motivate people to read more than just a headline, as many of us do? Let's admit it. But and he came up with an idea that it should be an app which will be rewarding people for reading the article through. How do you do that? How do you know that people read the article through? So you have to read the story, and then you have a quick quiz in the end. You answer questions, and then you get scores. And then you collect your scores, like with any gift card, a benefit card. And then you for a certain amount of scores, you can exchange it to a gift. The gifts, the first set of gifts would be provided with the funding from Local Media for Democracy, as well as the development costs of the app. But then he already made partnerships with local businesses, different types, who will be giving those gifts in the future. So we helped to develop this app, but it will stay. It will be launched very soon. We are just waiting every day on when it's approved at Google Play and Apple Store. And then
what's gonna be the name?
Info Gift. Very good name. So it's gift for information. And so we'll see how it takes off, whether people like it. But it is a very unusual idea.
How you can create new strategies like this.
And more a layer to add to this is that this media is a member of the Media Association in Poland, and they will grant the license to this app to other local media publishers in Poland for those who are interested. I think it will be for free. And then it will be great because more media will be able to engage with their audiences and to help people to read through the news.
Well, thank you so much for being here. That was really insightful, Iryna.
Thank you for inviting, and I do hope that our listeners and viewers will go and explore more about this project.
All the links below the video.
Yeah, so likes and details.
Many thanks.
Thank you.
That was PressTalks, and see you for other episodes.